What's going on, everybody? My name is Jay Statik, and this is the Statik Sessions. Today we're going to be doing a song breakdown for a song called Maal by SignatureBySB and Bhalwaan. These two, they're like an upcoming duo. They've had a couple of tracks out already. If you haven't heard about them, please go YouTube them. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to see what he did, how he produces, what he does, breaking down the whole mixing mastering process, the vocal chain process. Let's jump right into it. So jumping into it, as you can tell, he's got about 40-ish layers in here. I made a couple of groups for myself to make things easier. He's got a reference track, which he gave me, which to me sounded good, but there's things that he's still learning. And kids only actually both of them, they're only like 20 years old. They're still learning as they keep going. So shout out to them for even putting together what they put together right now, because to me, that's talent right there. In his rough mix, things that I thought were missing was, it was kind of sounding like clutter, but it sounded good. It's like good clutter. Like it sounds like there's energy in the song, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to take that and kind of make it punch a little bit more, hit a little bit better. So if it ever goes to like a club venue or it goes to a live show or it goes somewhere, at least they can play it and it won't sound like the mix is all over the place. And that's really crucial to me, to make sure that wherever you play a song, it sounds the exact same. And for me, even when I started doing this, it never used to happen. Sometimes the song would sound one way on one system, one way on another system. But now I think I've got a hold of it where they sound pretty legit no matter where we go. Quickly, let's go take a look at their rough mix and show you what it sounds like. I'm just going to start it in the middle. So that to me sounds really good. The thing that I didn't like about it was, one, the vocal was to me super low in the mix. The thing that I loved about it was the bass. The bass sounded so sick, but I believe SB had a little bit of an issue where he had to redo the sub bass, and I don't think he could get it back to that point, which sucks, happens sometimes. So I tried to do the best of both, what he sent me, and try to get this sub bass a little bit close to what it had, but even I couldn't attempt to, like, that just sounded too good. Sometimes in the mix, you start working on it and it gets to that point. So I really like this. I can tell there's a lot of percussion in there. The drums are super hip hop, sound really good. Then he had a simple melodies, really good breaks, a couple of effects, and then he had the vocals right down here at the bottom. So he had this lineup of vocal effects where they were like kind of telephony and all that stuff. And then he had his main vocals, which they had 2 layers of. No left and rights, no doubles, very simple to the point, which I love. Going into it, we'll start, because I have this whole thing organized properly. We'll start with the bass. The bass to me was dope. So I'll show you what it sounded like as a dry bass line. Cool little melody he's got there. So now I'll show you what it sounds like with what I added. I added a dark fat preset on this decapitator plugin, which I really like using. I think it adds a lot of low mid type tones to it, which sound really cool, kind of like distortion. Really nice distortion. Without it, it brings out that low mid, which I love. And then I wanted some more saturation because I liked how it sounded in his rough mix, so I thought I'd get it kind of close to that if possible. So in this, add a little bit of drive and a little bit of this bass to it. And then because it really destroyed that low end, like kind of got rid of it, came back on the dry wet mix just to give that original sample some breathing room, brought it back in. And I thought it brought a really nice vibe to it. Now, because the low end was missing, I decided to add in the low end back in with this Little Labs Vogue. Now, when it goes into those high notes, to me, it stood out too much. So I added a compressor. And with this compressor, what I did was sidechain the kick, because every time the kick was hitting, kick was getting lost within the bass. So what I decided to do was throw in some sidechaining, had it sidechain with the kick, and it sounded really cool. So now you'll hear a dip every time the kick hits. That way it gives it its own room, which sounds really nice. Let me go into the second layer of this little bass sound. It's not even bass, actually. It's just an effect. I thought it was going to be a bass hit, but it's not. Now, if you know where the sample's from, you know where it's from, but I'm not going to say anything. Now, what we did here was he's already got a bass line above this whole section right here. So because he's got that, I didn't want it to interfere or create any rumble or any of that distortion. So I decided to roll off the low end and add a nice little quarter delay, and it sounded really nice. Didn't have to do anything because he already added his effects of whatever he wanted in there. Now with the kick, jumping into that, he has 2 kicks that he used. And in these 2 kicks, all I did was roll off the low end. Once I had the low end rolled off, I brought in this DBX 160 just to give it its punch back in. So now with a compressor can make a lot of difference. So if you know how to use a compressor, especially this DBX 160, it's just sick on punches. We'll go down to this part where it's the snares. What I did on these, nothing crazy. Again, because I wanted the attack, because these are really hip hop type drums. I added in the DBX 160, give it the attack, rolled off some of the low mud that's in the bottom, just because this is a very bass heavy track and I wanted to add some top end like crackle. So that's what it sounded like. Now without it. So it sounds a little bit dead without it. It sounds like it's just in there. You can tell it's got potential, but it's not being brought out. So with it, it just hits right away, which is what you need. Jumping into these, I believe these are all hi-hat type sounds. Yeah. So we got this. Then we have this. I personally like his selection of hi-hats. They don't sound like the normal hi-hats that you use. And he's all about trying out different stuff and making it sound normal, which I love. He's got some really cool rides. I think he's also got a cowbell in this one. Yeah, he's got a cowbell. Then he's got some cymbals which have been pitch shifted, which sound really cool. And simple crash. Now with this, what I did was I rolled off any of the low end just in case there's any low end information on there. But also I used the DBX 160, but the Waves edition. For whatever reason, to me, this Waves edition, if you load the overhead section in this, it brings your entire hi-hat. Even if you had some snares in there, it brings everything to life. For me, I only had hi-hats. So now I'll play it without this and then I'll play it with it and you'll hear the difference. So I'm just going to play it and then I'm going to press on the power button for that. Now with to me, I can hear everything open up and it sounds like the high end is like just in your face without being annoyingly bright or any of that kind of stuff. So to me, I love that DBX 160 from Waves for hi-hats especially. Now we'll go into, actually I'll show you what the drums all sound like together with the bass line. Easy, sounds tight, bumps. That's what he wanted. So now if I play the original sound or original rough mix, and I'll play this afterwards. So his drums were good in this mix. Like, don't get me wrong, you can feel it. I just wanted it to pop more. Sounds really nice to me. So let's go into his other sections. So he's got some Indian percussion. So I'll show you those. Really cool. He adds his little effect and I love that. Like just chops. I love how he does that because he makes everything sound different, unique, the way he wants it. Doesn't just use the typical, dolky that everyone uses, including myself. Sounds dope. And then the one sound that everyone knows, he has in there, but he has it way in the back. So you don't even hear it, but it is in there. And I love that, the little mix between all of that. Now what I did in this was definitely try to make it stand out a little bit more. I added the JJP drums, did the kick out, added some attitude, got rid of some attack because I didn't want it to stand out in people's faces too much. And he asked me the same thing, just keep it in the back. Now, my secret weapon that I've been using lately has been this tape plugin from Softtube. I think this thing is beyond sick. And so I believe on this one, I'm using the, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to change anything, but I believe it's the Snare Trans, and it's just too sick to use. Adds a little bit of that tape warmth, but at the same time degrades it, makes it sound really cool. So I definitely wanted that. And then I brought in some RVox that pulls it back out to the front, reduce some of the low end. These three plugins were more from Sean. He asked me to do a couple of things after he heard the mix, and he's like, you know, for the Dolky and Dole and all that stuff, I don't want it to stand out too much, but I want it to have its presence. So he's like, can you reduce some of the low end? I did that. I added some compression just because once I reduced it, it felt like it fell apart. And then he asked me to throw on a side chain for this. So every time the kick hits, it side chains with the Dolky, just so that kick fully has room. And we did that, added some of that in, and it sounded dope with the kick. So I'll show you what it sounds like with the snare, kick, and bass. So if you could hear the difference, without it on, you hear the front part of the Dolky with the kick, but as soon as I throw it on, it just ducks and it gives that kick its space, and then it weirdly adds some rhythm to the Dolky as well, which I thought was really cool. Now jumping into the Melodies. Melodies really cool. He's got some, I think he used this Fuego loop. I think it's like a guitar sample. And I know he chopped that up, so it sounds really nice. I like that. And he adds some Triton strings. That sounds cool. I think they're Triton strings. There might just be a sample too. No idea. And he's really, personally, I love the way he does his breaks and his intros into beat drops because they sound really cool. Jumping into his two-piece work. So he's got this. Personally, I really love this sound, but when I heard it dry, it sounded too dull. Now add in my effects. So now with this, I did like the sound of the piecework, the strings, but it didn't cut through the mix, and it would have sounded like it just fell into the mix. So what I did was right away use a CLA guitar sample or with a VST. It sounded really good, brought everything to life, made it too sharp. So then I used the multi-band compression from FabFilter, which really controls the high end, and then did a LA2A just to overall compress the entire thing. Then over here, added in some delay and reverb and brought it right back to life, which sounded really cool. At the end over here, he's got a little bit of a sine wave. I don't think I did anything to this. Yeah, it just sounded really good. Sounds sick. What's the point of doing anything to it if it sounds good? He had a couple of effects on his build-ups. So he's got easy, really cool. A little bit of that riser, and then he's got can't get away with not having that friggin' Pyrex glass break. Simple clap impact. Nice little textured riser. Sounds cool. And that sounds cool as hell. I like all that. I believe this is his tag.
SB.
Fire tag. So he had a limited amount of effects. I believe, and I might be just talking for him, I don't know if it's true or not, but from what I know and from what I've heard, he's not heavy on the effects. He keeps his effects really light. He makes the music actually go from part one to part two, meaning if it's a transition piece from the verse to the chorus or from the chorus to the piecework or whatever it is, he likes to make that transition sound as best as it can without having to add a massive riser only to go there. So he keeps his risers and stuff pretty limited, which I like. So now moving forward, really simple. I just grouped the tracks into two sections, and then I had an overall group. So I had one group for the main vocals, one group for the affected vocals, and then a major group that combined the two of them, just kind of melts everything together. Only reason I separated these two is because this one has effects on it, which is like an amp effect and telephone effect, and then the other one just has auto-tune. Or no, it doesn't even have, he sent me with auto-tune, that's right. So we'll quickly go through what it sounds like raw, what it sounds like with effects, all that kind of stuff. So both the vocal chain effects are the same except the actual amp on this one, which I'll show you. But now going through what I did, when you hear the vocal on its own, easy. Added some API 2500. Control anything, even though it's pretty compressed in general, the vocal. Just, added some more compression to it. Sounded like a little bit of a heavy vocal, so I got rid of some of the low end. Added in some of the top end. It sounded sharp in some parts, so jumped in, got rid of something at 1.8, got rid of something at 3.4 and 5.8, and just overall got rid of some of the low end again. Doesn't sound as ear piercing now. Now to bring everything back in, I added some compression and then raised some of the gain just to bring it back to a good level to listen to. I'm a big fan of this, multi-band compressor from FabFilter. So added this. To me, visually in my head, it flattens everything back out. So it stops things from peaking and being annoying or surprising, which I like. But now that it sounds a little bit dead, obviously got to use that JJP to bring things back in. I think I only use this plugin because my name's in it, but I fucking love it. Now I had a Manly. I believe I used this just to dip out that 4K. So there was something that was ear piercing to me, so I got rid of it. Yeah, it gives it more of like a warm type feeling. I feel like I'm convincing myself as I'm talking to you guys. Have the RVox, bring that stuff right back up to the front. Really nice. And then anything else that was annoying, just bring back that MB and flatten it out. And from there, added in some reverb and delay. Easy enough. Super, super easy. Now, that's the vocals like that. Then he had these affected vocals that he used a lot of in the song. So this is the affected vocals. He used an amp rack, simple amp rack from Ableton, and then had a telephone effect, which I completely manipulated because it wasn't where I was kind of going for. So if you listen to it without, now with the amp, obviously there's a lot of distortion, a lot of high end, which I'm sure he doesn't want because it's annoying. And then bring in that phone effect with being manipulated. Now, I know he wanted a lot of effects on this, so threw in some of reverb and delay, and then I threw in this like space type of delay that I use, which is the RC48. I don't use it very often. It's a very like short type of reverb, but it's really nice. That's it for the vocals. It was pretty easy. I think I added one more. Yeah, I just added an overall compressor and this is just stuff that once I start working on a song, if I go back to it, I'm like, oh, I could do this and this and just fix it up a little bit. Nothing crazy. Just simple compressor, glue everything back together, and a little EQ to, sweeten stuff up. Mastering chain, nothing crazy at all. Going through it, adding in about 3 dB of width in the stereo fields, EQ, which I didn't do anything with. So now to the mastering process, really simply adding some 3 dB of width. Simple enough. You guys have seen me do this enough times. Low, cut out the low end, high end, the mid and side from the low end, like cut out any of the side information, keep it straight mono as much as possible. The T-Rax clipper, give it that push so it's limiting up until this, and then give it that loudness with the L2 and we're good to go. And this is what it sounds like. that's it. That is literally the mix master track. Gala Maal, our very own Frequency Entertainment's very own Signature by SB and Bhalwaan. These two, they're going to keep on killing it. 20-year-old kids who are just having fun making bomb-ass music. So congrats to them. So that wraps up our entire Statik session for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. Definitely share. Share as much as you can. I'm trying to help out some youngins, you know, get out their music, do whatever they can. So if you guys can keep on sharing it, support music, support all these Statik sessions. It's good for the community, good for the culture, man. More producers, more engineers, more all that stuff. If you're an existing, you know, you keep on watching, you're an existing subscriber, thank you so much for helping out. And keep on subscribing, keep on liking, keep on commenting. Hit that bell for future notifications. Until next time, see you guys soon.